Hello, good morning, everyone. Stay until the end and tell me in the comments what you thought of the video. Please help me improve. I am eternally grateful. Well, I want to tell you that imagine waking up one morning to find that the money in your bank account, the savings you worked for your entire life, the paycheck that was supposed to feed your family, had suddenly lost almost all of its value overnight. Imagine going to the grocery store and seeing the price of bread multiply not once, not twice, but 10 times in a single week. This isn't a science fiction dystopia, and it's not a doomsday prediction. These are the insane economic collapses that actually happened, real stories that destroyed nations, rewrote history, and proved that economies, no matter how powerful they seem, are far more fragile than we want to believe. Tonight, we're going to uncover the most shocking collapses in history, the ones that reshaped politics, created wars, and left scars that we still feel today. These aren't just numbers in dusty history books. They're real human tragedies, dark warnings, and chilling reminders that what goes up can come crashing down in the most brutal ways imaginable. To understand how these collapses happened, we have to go back in time. Picture New York in 1929. The roaring 20s were in full swing. Jazz music filled the nightclubs, champagne flowed endlessly, and the stock market seemed like a golden escalator carrying everyone to riches. Banks handed out loans like candy. Investors were buying stocks on margin, borrowing money to gamble on shares, and the newspapers declared that prosperity had no limits. But behind the glittering lights of Manhattan, there was a dangerous bubble swelling. On October 24, 1929, known forever as Black Thursday, that bubble burst. The stock market collapsed, billions of dollars evaporated into thin air, and ordinary Americans rushed to banks only to discover that their life savings had simply vanished. The crash spread like wildfire across the globe, dragging Europe, Asia, and Latin America into the abyss. Families who once lived comfortably were suddenly standing in breadlines. Farmers destroyed crops because prices had fallen so low that food was worth less than the cost of harvesting it. And in that desperate vacuum, extremist ideologies began to rise. The Great Depression wasn't just an economic disaster. It was the fertile soil where fascism, Nazism, and global war took root. Fast forward to 1997, to the bustling streets of Bangkok. Thailand was celebrated as an Asian tiger, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. But growth was built on shaky foundations, massive borrowing in foreign currencies, speculative real estate booms, and a financial sector drunk on easy money. When investors realized the Thai baht was overvalued, panic struck. The currency collapsed, banks failed, and foreign capital fled overnight. The crisis spread like a virus across Asia. Indonesia's economy imploded. South Korea begged the International Monetary Fund for a bailout, and millions of people lost jobs, homes, and hope. Politicians fell, riots erupted, and for the first time, the world realized that globalization was not just a promise of prosperity, it was a chain reaction, where one country's collapse could infect an entire continent. But perhaps no collapse is more raw, more tragic, and more visceral than Argentina in 2001. Imagine living in a country where the government had promised that every peso was exactly $1. It sounded safe, stable, even brilliant. For years, Argentinians lived with this illusion of economic strength. But behind the curtain, debt was piling up, exports were collapsing, and confidence was rotting away. When the bubble finally burst, banks froze accounts. People literally couldn't access their own money. Desperate Argentinians stormed the streets, banging pots and pans in protest, while supermarkets were looted by hungry families. In just a few weeks, Argentina burned through 5 presidents. 5 in 10 days. The nation unraveled before the world's eyes, and to this day, the word corralito, the freezing of bank accounts, remains one of the most chilling terms in the country's history. And then came 2008. We all remember the headlines. Lehman Brothers collapsed, Wall Street melted down, and the entire financial system teetered on the edge of oblivion. But the real horror wasn't just numbers on stock tickers, It was the millions of families who lost homes because of subprime mortgages, the workers laid off by the thousands, the small businesses shuttered forever. The crash wasn't an accident. It was fueled by greed, reckless speculation, and a belief that housing prices could only go up. Spoiler alert, they didn't. When the bubble burst, the fallout didn't just hit the United States. It spread to Europe, Asia, and beyond, triggering the Eurozone debt crisis, austerity measures, and political upheaval. Some argue the anger and distrust born in 2008 still fuels today's populist movements, proving that the echoes of collapse don't fade, they mutate. What's most shocking about all these collapses is the sheer level of denial and hubris that came before them. In the Roaring '20s, experts said the stock market had reached a permanently high plateau. In 1997, Asian governments claimed everything was under control until it wasn't. In Argentina, officials swore the peso-dollar peg was untouchable even as the foundations cracked. And in 2008, the same banks that triggered the crash were bailed out, shielded from accountability, while ordinary people paid the price. Only years later, through investigations, leaked documents, and brave whistleblowers, did the full truth emerge. These collapses weren't accidents. They were the inevitable result of greed, denial, and corruption. So where does that leave us today? History whispers a chilling warning. Another collapse is not a question of if, but when. The cycles of boom and bust are as old as civilization itself. Empires fell over bad debts. Nations crumbled under hyperinflation. Families were destroyed by bubbles bursting. And yet each generation believes they're smarter, safer, more advanced. But the ghosts of past collapses tell us otherwise. The real question is, when the next collapse comes, and it will we be ready or will we repeat the same mistakes all over again? Think about it the next time you see markets hitting record highs, the next time politicians promise eternal growth, the next time an expert tells you, don't worry, this time is different. Because as history has proven, those are the exact words you should fear the most. And before you click away, remember this. The stories you've heard tonight aren't just history lessons. They are warnings. Warnings carved in the ashes of nations, written in the hunger of millions, and echoing in every promise of prosperity that sounds too good to be true. If you want to uncover more of these hidden truths, more of the insane collapses, conspiracies, and bizarre experiments that shaped the world we live in, make sure to stay tuned. Because what you don't know about money, power, and history might just be the very thing that decides your future.